Hello, and welcome to this edition of Accenture's Technology Vision for Insurance 2015 podcast series. Mark Halverson, Managing Director of Accenture Insurance, discusses the outcome economy, one of the major trends to emerge from this year's Tech Vision. Mark, thanks for being here. In the previous podcast, we discussed how items like onboard vehicle telematics monitors, wearable computers, and so on are coalescing into the Internet of Me. This time, we focus on how the component parts of the Internet of Things enable insurers to convert the data they collect into outcomes that we value. How is this trend going to change the business of insurance in years to come?
This is a fantastic space for us to be exploring. As we alluded to in the last podcast, a focus of many insurers today is around the needs and intentions of their customers. So not about the policy. The policy is a passive concept. How can they be a positive part of people's daily lives? How can they be engaged as an advisor with their corporate customers in a very different way? And to think about that is to think about the outcomes, the needs and intentions that people are trying to solve for. People are not solving for an insurance policy. And as I mentioned before, they're not necessarily solving for a healthcare policy. They're solving for the idea of living with dignity. They're solving for leaving a legacy. These are more human-centric needs that people tend to tie to. And that's what we're going to see is many more offerings that are much more closely linked to how people think. So it's not about teaching people what insurance policies are and what the rider is and how important it may be. It's really engaging people in the way that they think.
What's behind the rise of the outcome economy?
Certainly the idea of the outcome economy is nothing new. And as we alluded to earlier in an earlier podcast, people think about their needs and intentions in a very different way, oftentimes, that enterprises present them with products and services. So back to the insurance company who's providing an individual policy, that's a very small percentage of how people think about their daily lives. So my intention is not about an auto insurance policy. My intention or my need is to commute to work. And I may need to optimize, or may have an intention or a need to optimize that time. Maybe that means I'm going to have an infotainment system linked to my telematics capability in my car. Maybe I need help or assistance in parking, maybe near a train station. Perhaps I need to pick up train tickets on my way in order to speed my commute. But the set of services and activities around the intention of the individual is where we're seeing a lot of focus. And that's much more about how people think, not just about the individual products, but really wrapping around the needs and intentions of the individual and the outcome they're seeking to achieve.
Are there any examples of this sort of thinking already bringing disruption to the insurance market?
I think from a healthcare perspective, we're seeing some of the most aggressive movement in this area. And there's some really interesting, opportunities around wearable computing, implantable computing, ingestible computing that are starting to help people, much better understand their own bodies and how their bodies are reacting. Therefore, what are the products, services, and insurance that can link to helping me live a better, more fulfilled life? There's a whole concept and movement around what's known as the quantified self, which will link in things like your genome mapping, like your biome, as well as your health history, and that will actually lead to much more sophisticated health care. So we're seeing a lot of the even pills that people can take that will work in concert with other devices to help bring this massive amount of information about one's health to help diagnose as well as help to lead a healthier lifestyle. I think that's where some of the most interesting opportunities are emerging.
So where do insurers start with developing offers for the outcome economy?
Well, I think the opportunity that the insurers have is to really focus back to this concept of needs and being customer-centric and thinking about what is it that the individual is trying to achieve. Now, a lot of that ends up being through research, and a lot of that ends up being through focus groups. But we see a huge amount of activity in just observing to try to understand and detect new needs and new risks. Because one of the things that we often face is that we don't necessarily understand what those needs are unless we engage with our customers very directly and perhaps even observe them and not only ask them. I think it was Henry Ford who said that if I had asked anybody what they really wanted, they would have described a faster horse. So the opportunity to observe and understand a new set of needs and then start to offer services that wrap around those needs is really where the insurance companies need to begin. It's an outside-in and customer-centric view.
Can you talk a little about the technologies that underpin the outcome economy?
Oh, there's so many technologies that are emerging now that can be used in this way. And clearly from an Internet of Me and Internet of Things, there's massive amounts of data that are being pushed out. I alluded in a previous podcast to the notion of robotics, which is going to be enormous. Artificial intelligence is helping sort through all of the massive amounts of information that are being generated. I think we're going to see a lot of exploration around nanotechnology, genetic engineering, and a whole series of neuroscience capabilities that will literally change the nature of longevity and how people feel about their life and what it means to be alive. So I think the opportunities as we think about this are underpinned by the massive changes in technology that are already upon us, many of which are in research phases, but we see many, many startups coming up that are literally going to change people's lives, and the insurance industry has a chance to embrace them and make them a safe reality.
How well are insurers prepared for the outcome economy?
The insurance industry in aggregate is not always at the forefront of evaluating some of these new trends. I think there's a massive opportunity to embrace the societal role of making innovation a safe reality, but not every company is thinking about it that way. Many of them are looking very specifically at optimizing their current business model, with which there are many, many opportunities to do. But the opportunity to move beyond insurance is really one of the things that these firms need to be contemplating. Many of the trends that have been described in our technology vision are certainly things that insurers will be able to embrace and look at taking on to make a safe reality and enhancing society.
Mark, it's been great speaking with you.
I've certainly enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Mark Halverson, Managing Director of Accenture Insurance. If you'd like more information on how Accenture can help, please visit accenture.com/digital insurer.